I, James, founded and work for HPI, but do not represent them or any of their opinions.
Welcome to Season 9, Episode 329 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Every week, we definitively answer one question about the future of tech. To do that, we take into many factors, including the companies involved, the people working for them, their marketing, and, of course, the technology they are developing. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and winning a small golden statue of a man is my brother, James Furlo.
Yeah, I heard that, what is it, Oscars or Emmys or Grammys or...
One of those. Oscars.
One of those.
The big
Oscars?
one, James. The only one that matters.
For the movies.
Yeah, for the movies.
Oh, that's exciting.
Is it?
Any particular films you're rooting for?
No.
Let's see. I would like, I don't know, Justice League to win.
Yeah, it doesn't have a really good shot because it didn't get nominated.
Yay.
Honestly, I've only seen like one of the movies on the best picture this year.
You're too busy. That's what that means.
Oh, yeah, probably. Also, they're like sad and stuff, and I just wasn't in the in a sad mood.
Typically, they're all like serious and stuff.
Yeah.
So Thor Ragnarok wasn't nominated. That's
not for best picture, although it's clearly best picture.
Pretty good soundtrack,
And
that's for sure.
You want to know who's going to win most money this year? Holy cow, man! Black Panther at it again.
Oh, jeez.
Is it a drug or not? It is crazy. It hasn't even opened in China yet, and it's already almost at $1 billion. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's exciting, James. I don't know why I get excited about Disney making billions of dollars, but I get excited.
I read a really interesting article about that, which isn't today's topic, but it was talking about how essentially great for Disney and Hollywood short term. It's like, but long term, maybe not so much. Like, what does it say when Disney is the top 4 of 5, and when they finally buy, was it Fox or whatever, they'll be the top 13 of 15 of all time. And they're just like, it's a one-man show at this point, which is all great and dandy until it's not anymore, and all of this stuff goes through cycles. And it's going to be interesting. And it's like, it's movie theaters is really where it's going to get fascinating. And what he was saying is that apparently, was it Movie Pass is going pretty strong, but it's people who have decided like, oh, they're totally willing to pay, $9.99 for a movie, which is clearly significantly less than what movie theaters are currently charging. Right. Like, if they go bust, which they probably will, then they're like, everyone's in for.
Oh yeah, we are on a war path right now for the next thing. This is like, in a way, it's exciting because you're forming a monopoly, but it's a pop culture monopoly. Like they've got the power to manipulate the theaters, which is the infrastructure, and the next. I mean, I don't know. Part of what makes this calculation weird is that the value of Netflix is bigger than any of their other rivals, other than I think Disney, and just the idea that theaters are like they're a vestige of the past, and they're cool, but
I don't think they yeah,
they don't have to be, but in a way I do think they have to be. I think we're not talking about VR and AR. I don't know how you're going to work us into our topic tonight, but
yeah, I'll figure it out. But well, I mean, like, and I guess if everyone's got a 65-inch TV in their home, like, that's pretty good. Which I think I figured out how to put a TV in our living room, by the way.
That's awesome.
We're going to get rid of the fireplace. Well, we're not going to get rid of it, but we're just not going to use it.
Okay.
Then we could put it on the hearth. Problem solved.
There we go.
Boom. And then I get it at the height that I want. It's centered. It can be large. I mentioned it to my wife, and she just rolled her eyes at me and was like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well,
I did add a new piece of smart technology to my home this weekend.
Yes.
I now have a smart exhaust fan in my bathroom. It senses the amount of moisture in the room, automatically turns on, and then when the humidity reduces to a certain level, it automatically turns off.
Interesting.
Yeah. Kind of brilliant.
Cool. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. That's what, not that I'm just kind of, well, what I found was like we'd get done taking a shower and we would just leave the fan on.
Oh yeah.
And then you have to remember to go back and turn it off. And I was like,
Which
oh, this
is
is
once you get used to not remembering things, it's really annoying to have to remember things.
yeah, it was bad. Which I know, like usually, like the cheap places, they just have timers. I'm like, dude, there's got to be a smart one of these. But Lutron, they make a humidity sensing
Yeah, and
fan.
yeah, humidity sensors are super cheap too. They're not. I can you
Apparently,
build that in at a reasonable cost. So
I had to determine how sensitive it was supposed to be, which I was like, I don't know. So I just kind of guessed and went super sensitive. I figured I could always back it off, but
on too much.
yeah. And then there's apparently you can even set it to just automatically run for airflow reasons if that was a thing you were interested in,
Cool.
which I'm not. So there's that, which is kind of funny in the directions. They're like, this is off and this is probably right for most of you. All right. Trust you guys. You probably looked into it more than I have.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. But what I really wanted to talk about was this podcast and how we get a bazillion listeners.
All right.
One bazillion. And
okay.
I have bad news.
Yes.
I don't think it's through Facebook and social sharing.
What?
But let's talk about that.
Okay.
So there was this new article out done based on research done by BuzzSumo. Have you ever heard of that company?
No.
So they're essentially a really cool they're like this weird hybrid of an analytics company and a social sharing company. So you probably have seen their front end stuff like share buttons. They make those types of things.
I've seen those.
Ooh,
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. But then what they do is they give I don't know, what do you want to call them? People who use their stuff, their customers, a bunch of data as well about it. So one of the really cool ones, like I have a website that I've essentially given up on for landlords because I'm working on something better, and I used BuzzSumo for it because they just had a WordPress plugin that you could use, and it would give you a heat map of where people have been on your page. So you could get an idea for how far they've scrolled and where they've stopped, where they've spent time, where they've clicked and things like that. And so you could really see what's doing well, what's not so well. So like if you wanted to test your sidebar, you could see what things are people actually clicking on.
Cool.
Yeah, it was very cool, very visual. It was neat. So so I like them. And so they decided to share a new report. They've looked at 100 million articles published to come up with their sharing trends.
That seems like enough.
That's probably statistically significant, though I noticed on a couple of their things, they actually include air bars, which I fully appreciated. And I was like, wow, those are like bigger air bars than I would have imagined given your sample set. But hey, that's cool, whatever. What do I know? So this is cool. So I just kind of want to walk through it in this episode. Because what I really want to do is I want to say, has social jumped the shark? And I'm talking like Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, those kind of things when I say social. And you'll get why I mean that. And so that's kind of going to be the ultimate question that we're going to be asking. Like, is it Dunskies? Is it on the way down? Or is Zuckerberg trying to find, time well spent, or what is it? Time spent is time well spent. And are people finding it's not on Facebook? And so anyways, there were a couple of theories out there, and it's like maybe true. So here's the big top line takeaway. I think this is amazing. Social sharing is down by 50% across the board just a few years ago. So in 2015, articles saw an average of 8 shares. Today, times 50%, it's dropped to only 4 shares per article.
Whoa.
And how about this? I thought this was also interesting. Talk about the long tail or not so long tail. Only 5% of content gets shared more than this random number, 343 shares. I know what they did there. They looked at the top 5% and took the average, and they came up with 343, which is fine. The question is, what does the next one get?
Right, yeah.
Whatever, distributions. I kind of want to know about that stuff, but whatever. So interesting, right? So social sharing down 50%. we're in trouble. Well, maybe. Um, First of all, there's a lot of things that are affecting it, but one of them, which I thought was interesting, is just that um, there's like the YouTube problem that they're having. There's more competition out there among publisher content. So here's the weird part: people are sharing more than ever, but their options of what to share is greater than they've ever had before, and so as a result, the shares are spread across more articles.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's kind of like back in the day when there were only 3 channels, like shows, a hit show would, or, like Seinfeld, right, was like crazy popular. It was like, well, yeah, because you were competing against 20 other channels. Good for you. Now you're competing against 1,000 other channels. And so even if you're a hit, and YouTube, right, and Netflix. And so a hit show in today's day and age is not the same at all. And so that's part of what we're dealing with here. But, whatever. There's some other stuff that make you really question where it's headed. Apparently, everyone is an expert on Bitcoin now, and so everyone feels the need to write an article, which I don't think we've kind of dismissed Bitcoin, really. And
you and me personally,
I think we're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we've.
Are you vested in Bitcoin?
No.
On Robinhood, you can invest in Bitcoin now.
What? Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, anytime you're single stock trading, you're gambling. I personally think,
Oh, dude, I love gambling.
So, I know it's fun, but it's not what I do. So I'm not going to invest in Bitcoin. How are we getting off on this topic? But it's the blockchain, man. That's where it's the underlying.
Totally. What's also important is that private sharing via email and Slack, how about that for being measured, is on the rise. So people are opting, instead of taking it to Facebook, they're saying, well, I'll just share it directly with the 2-3 people who I know will like this. It's like, it's back in the email forwarding days, kind of. Remember those days? Those days were horrible.
They were horrible, but it's interesting that you bring that up. I
yeah.
Get, like on Instagram, I get, people will they don't like and reshare just a random post. They send it to me and say, haha, this is a funny post.
Really?
Yeah. And then I have to respond back and pretend like I think it's funny.
I don't have cool friends on Instagram, so that doesn't happen. Whoops, dropping my timer here. And by the way, the other thing muddying the water is companies like Facebook do keep tweaking their algorithm. And so they're, again, the whole time well spent thing is happening. But here's like, okay, fine. Things are being spread. Waters are muddied. And then you have this. Google sites are now driving twice as many referrals to publishers as social media. So social shares are on the decline, but search engine finds or whatever is continually on the decline and is now twice as big as social, whereas they used to be like dead even. I don't know. I can't do the math here. A year ago?
Wait, so okay, let me make sure I understand this. So so you're saying how people get to an article?
Yes.
It used to be that like a year ago, half of the articles or half of the people who came to an article came through social sharing.
Technically 35%, yes.
Half of them came through, or
35%.
35% of them came from Google. And
yes.
Now
45% come from Google and 20% come from Facebook.
All right. So people looking for it, people searching for it is increasing. Huh.
Yeah. And I want to share 2 more facts, but before I do that.
Yeah. What's this episode? This episode is this episode is brought to us by Least Mean Squares.
LMS.
It's a mathematical technique that allows you to optimize a particular equation for a data set. It's really good for minimizing error. And most people think about linear regression, but it applies to all sorts of crazy stuff. And there's some higher dimensional things that you can do with least mean squares that get pretty nutty. And it's really useful if you're trying to optimize for real world data sets. I'm just saying.
So there's so in Excel you have solver, right? Which is pretty cool, pretty amazing. I usually like to tell people that the only reason why you use solver is you're bad at algebra, but that's not always the case, and I have had to use it on occasion. I don't very often because, well, I'm good at algebra, but when I do, usually it's solver works okay when you're trying to optimize a single cell. When you're trying to optimize against, you can usually, okay, what am I trying to say here? Usually I'm not just trying to optimize a single time frame. Usually it's like I'm I need to hit a certain number in like a forecast or a tool or whatever, and I need to adjust all these other numbers in order to hit this final number that finance wants me to hit.
Yeah.
And it's usually not just one quarter.
Yeah.
Usually it's not just one quarter. It's like 12 quarters, and you have a choice. You can either run solver 12 times, having to move it over a certain number of cells, which is just
Annoying.
painstaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what I've learned is that you can set up a least mean squares where all you do is you take all those 12 inputs and you calculate a least mean square error on it. And then all you say is change all these cells down here to minimize my least mean square error. And then you just walk away for half an hour and let Excel do its thing. And it tweaks and it changes everything until that is minimized. And so it's technically it's still the same amount of computer work, but I get to go get a hot chocolate. So
that's awesome. I like that. My problem is what I'm trying to do is like it's one step beyond. Well, it's a couple steps beyond that into like the
espresso or
yeah. Well, it's like I don't have to naively you're letting the computer just like brute force it quickly. I need or brute force it, which is just say, hey, solve, find try a bunch of stuff and find the closest.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm actually trying to do it quickly, which means that I need to take the derivative of that equation, the multi-variable derivative, set it to 0, then solve for that system of equations.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, totally.
Should allow me just to, like in very few steps, solve for the least mean square of the it's really fast, but it's just math where I'm like, I think they started to teach me how to do this once. Anyway,
yeah. See, I'm good at algebra.
Yeah,
not calculus.
Exactly.
Let's be very clear here.
Oh yeah,
which is perfect for Excel.
Anyway,
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
This show has been brought to you by that. So go out and get some least mean squares. You use them all the time. If you don't know, you do. It's just it's how the real world works.
You use it in your head. You just may not be explicitly doing the math, but you definitely use it, and you benefit from it from other people. They probably used a least mean square error metric at some point here during this article that we're talking about for some sort of correlation or other something, even though while we're talking about our trends. They clearly did the math at some point. I do the math all the time. So speaking of the article, two more things before we decide if social sharing is dead or not. This is kind of these are two sides of the same coin here. So some sites have been hurt more than others. So viral publishers, we're talking about Playbuzz, Upworthy. Remember Upworthy?
Sort of.
Dude, I remember Upworthy. So great. They were amazing at their titles here. Let's see. Are they still around? They had a huge hot spike. And I just remember and then here we go. The absolutely wild story from the civil rights movement you didn't hear in history class. They were so good at their titles.
That's a pretty good title.
Narrative 4, whatever that means, helps teens build empathy through a unique and powerful story exchange. Why a rising Hollywood actor decided to come out as undocumented.
Whoa.
What? Dude, that first title was probably the best of the group. Here are 6 simple ways you can help families in Easter Gauta now. I've the absolutely wild story from the civil rights movement you didn't hear in history class. Like that's them. They're all about the title. And then you click on the article and you're just kind of like, oh, that was okay.
Yeah.
The buildup wasn't quite there. Even BuzzFeed, they have been seeing regular and gradual. What does that mean? Seen regular and gradual declines. I feel like they just need to say gradual declines, whatever, in their total shares. So sites like that have definitely been going down, and I think a lot of that is a factor of the Facebook tweak method. It's been even worse these last few months. And I definitely blame Facebook for that. But here's the deal. If you have a site that's quality content, oh
Yes.
man, you're doing good.
Oh,
Things
good
are getting
news.
better for you. So HBR, Harvard Business Review, who I've started subscribing to in like the last year. That's so good. They wrote this interesting article that agreed 100% with me, so I really loved it. Was talking about, essentially they were like, it's not a zero-sum game of automation, AI, and human labor. They're like, and they were like, they went through and did all the math and showed how it was going to work. And like, no, what's going to happen is like, there will be some jobs that are replaced and there will be new jobs that are created and there will be still some of the same jobs, just like all technology. And it's a question of speed. And they're like, and our research shows that it's going to be an okay transition. Yes, it will be hard for some people. It's okay. I was like, yes, they agree with me. I love it. The New York Times is another one that's had a banner year. And then The Economist. I've tried to get into The Economist. I got a free subscription to them through business school. Yeah. And I just, every time I was like, this is just, I don't get it.
It's like chewing on leather. It's a bit tough.
I always felt good flipping through it. But then when you actually tried to read it, I was like, I don't get it. So those guys have actually improved. So 7 of HBR's most shared articles, they were published in 2017. And The Economist has its 2 most shared articles in the last year. So
interesting.
Yeah, so their takeaway from BuzzSumo is it appears that increased content competition has not adversely affected quality sites. Paradoxically, it may have helped them reinforce their position in a world of content saturation. Ooh, that's a good term, content saturation. If you are going to share something with your audience, you want to make sure it is well-researched, like us, and authoritative, which we are, from a trusted source, that's us. Thus, it is possible people are more selective in their sharing. So apparently fake news is not a problem, or it is a problem. It's hard to tell. According to BuzzSumo, most people are smart enough to figure out what is fake and what is not.
I can say, I mean, it's
which is a different question.
We are pattern finding machines.
We're so good at that.
Really and truly, and that's
my kids are like amazing.
Yeah, we chew through patterns, and sometimes complex. And what happens? I think what happened was that these websites figured out an exploitable pattern. They figured out a way to, BuzzFeed and Upworthy and places like that, figured out a mechanism by which you could exploit a pattern that we were triggered for. But over time, people grow accustomed to it. We learn that, you know what, we're not going to be shocked by what number 6 is. It's not going to do it for us. And
I probably did learn that in history class, for the record.
Yeah, exactly.
Or there was a reason why it was skipped.
Yeah, exactly. and you become more and more cold to that, and so these websites have to go even further and further in using these tricks to try to loop you into even worse and worse content.
No, seriously, you didn't learn this in history class, really, this time.
Yeah, and it's going to shock you.
Really.
Yeah. Exactly.
It will shock your shocker.
Yeah, exactly. I
don't even know what that means.
I know we shocked you last time, but you will be shocked by how shocked you are.
This is shockingly shocking.
And I just think we're think crazily enough, we warm up to it. And Facebook, I think their whole time well spent thing is they're data maniacs. They look for least mean squares. They realized where the line was going, and their reaction to it was, we need to change what we were doing because people are evolving. They're getting better at understanding the pattern, and they're being repelled by it. And it's not to say that fake news, I think, is not an issue, but I don't know. I just think you're watching these it's just a slight shift, and that exploit isn't as useful as it used to be, because we've all been there. We all went through that to some degree, where the first time you saw a list like that, you clicked on it. The next couple of times you saw it, you clicked on it and thought, this is really stupid. And then some of us picked up on it quicker than others that, no, I'm just not going to pick on this. I'm not going to click on this link anymore. And those sorts of things that would go viral in that sharing sense. Word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising, right? It's not billboards, it's not radio ads, it's people telling people. And I think that it's because I read a book called Infectious. Is that what the name of it? And it was about viral ideas and how to make ideas go viral. And one of the things that they talk about is how powerful it is, obviously word of mouth, but getting into like what sort of word of mouth and why we share things. Because, and they shared this hypothetical example of two people on a hike talking about vacuum cleaners, which weirdly feels normal. Like, I can imagine walking with somebody talking about vacuum cleaners and like, oh yeah, this is a vacuum cleaner we use. Like, why? Why would that, in that circumstance, would people talk about that, even though that does feel like something that people would do, that I would do? And it has to do with how we share things and how we learn information from one another. And that is still really powerful and protected space. And that, I think that's why we want people to respond and to respect what we're saying. And we don't want to be looked at as somebody who overshares and shares garbage. And that's why we're pinpricking people that we want to share this with, this particular thing, as opposed to just blasting it into the ether. And hoping,
by the way, I visited Clickhole, which is the Onion's take on Upworthy.
Yeah.
And the one I would probably share would be utter pandemonium. Grandma really did a number on the TV settings before asking for help with the remote. Oh, so good. Or this other one, incredibly kind. Harry Styles has gained 800 pounds so that fans can see him fans at his concerts can see him better. They got a nice little photo to go with it, which is great. Hilarious. Or finally, a major scandal. Greg Popovich is taking an indefinite leave from coaching after admitting to taking home a basketball for personal use. Ooh, which is a subtle commentary. Clickhole, that's brilliant. And I think when you get sites that are doing things like that, you go, yeah, there definitely are issues. So what does this mean for social media? Is Facebook doomed?
No, I think what we said was, I don't think Facebook is doomed. I think they're rolling with it. They're changing. They're looking at the data and realizing that they needed to tweak their algorithm to deal with it.
Because people are going to do exactly what you just said, right? Eventually they figure it out, they get fed up with it, and they were looking at an impending cliff and went, oh, okay, we got to correct course here.
Right, exactly. Get ahead of it. And I think that, so I think they'll be okay.
Okay.
And I do think that, platforms that more allow you to directly communicate with people in a trusted way are going to be the ones that win, as opposed to just the newsfeed stuff.
Yeah. Which is why they're saying things like email, texting, and Slack, and those are taking off and doing better, which are really mini social networks if you think about it.
I do think about it.
That's how I think about it too.
Nice.
So I was like, I don't know what to say now. That's cool. All right. So Facebook isn't doomed. That's what we've decided. Shocker. Quality over garbage wins in the long run.
What?
And those numbers are starting to bear out. And the future continues to be more and more specialized, trusted social networks, niche networks. That's the theme for this year. One of the themes for this year. All right, cool. So what about you, dear listener, dear friend? Hey, you. Yeah, you. Do you think socials jumped the shark? Do you think Facebook is in trouble? Or do you think it's just really a sign that we are getting better and time better spent? And therefore there's less sharing, better quality instead of quantity. Let us know. Leave us a comment. No, seriously, leave us a comment. We want to know. And we also want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You can check out all the links. There's just one on furlobros.com/329. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Google Play. And we want to say thank you to Richard Bilton of Nieman Lab for taking what feels like probably a lot of time to go through and pull out the interesting things. So thank you for that, Richard. And we also want to say that this podcast is sponsored by listeners just like you. Thank you to our sponsors. And that it is brought to you by Least Mean Squares. So go minimize some squares via their means. On that note, I am... Did that work? I don't even know. I am James Furlo, and my upright, tall, shiny, statuesque brother is Matthew Furlo, and so we will talk next time.